Rain tapped lightly against the window pane. The city lights blurred through droplets like tiny, trembling stars. Emma Lawson sat at her small kitchen table, hunched over her laptop, the soft hum of the computer blending with the distant rumble of traffic. The apartment was quiet, except for the occasional squeak of her chair and the muted hiss of the radiator. She had always preferred evenings alone, a space to think, to unwind, to scroll through social media without interruption. Tonight, though, something felt off. Emma shrugged it off, attributing the unease to the lingering tension of a long week. She stretched her shoulders and clicked through her emails, answering a few urgent messages before leaning back. That's when her phone buzzed sharply against the table. The screen lit up, displaying unknown number. She frowned, picking it up. Usually unknown numbers were telemarketers, or worse, robocalls. But something in the silence on the other end made her pause. Then a voice came, distorted, calm, deliberate. "Meet me where no one can find you. Come alone." Emma's stomach sank. She almost laughed, thinking it was a prank, yet the voice carried a weight that made her pulse spike. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, but the line went dead. The screen flashed, call ended, before she could even press a button. Her hands shook as she set the phone down. Probably a prankster, she told herself. Just ignore it. Yet a small, irrational voice in her mind whispered that she shouldn't. The sound of footsteps outside her window made her freeze. She strained her eyes through the rain-streaked glass, but all she could see was the shadow of a figure moving quickly across the dimly lit sidewalk. Heart racing, she dialed her best friend, Mia. "Mia, I just got this weird call," Emma whispered. It sounded serious." Mia's voice came over the line, calm but sharp. "Emma, it's probably nothing. Ignore it. Seriously, don't let your imagination run wild." I know," Emma muttered, though the unease in her chest refused to settle. She glanced at the window again. Nothing, no shadow, no sign that anyone had been there, yet she felt it, an invisible presence, watching, waiting. Shaking off the fear, she put the phone down and returned to her emails, trying to distract herself. Minutes passed. The rain continued its gentle percussion, the city outside humming softly. Then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Her phone, the one that had just rung, was gone. Emma's eyes darted around the apartment. She didn't leave it anywhere. She hadn't touched it. The kitchen table was empty except for the laptop. Then she saw it, a single wet footprint on the hardwood floor leading toward the front door. Her mind raced. How? She took a cautious step toward the door. The footprint seemed to pulse in her mind, a tangible proof that something or someone was here. She reached for the doorknob. Before she could turn it, a muffled noise came from the hallway outside. Her heart pounded in her chest, echoing in her ears. She pulled back, pressing herself against the wall, listening. The sound faded. She waited, breath held, every instinct screaming to leave, but curiosity, or perhaps a morbid sense of courage, pushed her forward. She opened the door slowly. The hallway was empty, dimly lit by a single flickering light overhead. The smell of rain and wet pavement drifted in from somewhere outside. Emma stepped cautiously into the corridor, every nerve on fire. She looked left, then right. Nothing. And then a shadow moved at the far end of the hallway, quick, impossible to make out. She blinked, and it was gone. Her hand tightened on the doorknob of her apartment. Panic clawed at her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. She backed into her apartment and locked the door, double-checked the deadbolt. She called Mia again. "Mia, someone's outside my building. I think they're watching me," she whispered, voice barely audible over the pounding of her own heartbeat. "Emma, stay inside. Don't open the door. Lock everything. I'll call the police if I have to," Mia said firmly. Emma nodded even though Mia couldn't see her. She retreated into her apartment, shutting curtains, checking locks. The unease settled deep in her bones, a creeping certainty that something terrible was about to happen. Minutes passed. Her phone remained missing. The computer hummed quietly. Then a soft click echoed through the apartment, the unmistakable sound of a door opening. Emma froze. Her gaze darted to the front door. The deadbolt was still in place. A figure appeared in the corner of the hallway outside her apartment, tall, featureless, shrouded in darkness. Emma tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. The figure didn't move toward her, didn't speak. It simply watched, and then, as if dissolved by the shadows themselves, it vanished. Emma's breathing became erratic. She grabbed a kitchen knife from the drawer, holding it like a fragile shield. She knew she couldn't stay there forever, but what could she do? Call the police? Someone had already invaded her space, someone she couldn't see or name. Her thoughts raced. The call, the shadow, the footprints, it all connected in a way she couldn't untangle. She remembered the voice, calm, insistent, terrifyingly confident. Someone wanted her to go somewhere, but where and why? By the time she calmed enough to think rationally, she made a decision. She would step outside, just for a moment, to see if there was anyone near her apartment, any trace of the shadow. Maybe, if she was careful, she could get to the street and call for help. Emma unlocked the door and peered into the hallway. It was empty. Her heart raced, but she stepped out, feeling the chill of the rain seep through her jacket. She glanced left, then right. The lobby was deserted, wet footprints glinting faintly on the marble floor, leading toward the exit. Her instinct told her to run. She did, but as she reached the main door, the rain pouring over her, she glanced back, and in that instant, a figure emerged from the shadows behind her. 1 second it was there, the next, everything went black. When Mia called back moments later, there was no answer. By morning, Emma's apartment showed no signs of struggle. The windows were intact, the door was locked from the inside, the wet footprints had vanished, but Emma Lawson was gone. The police would call it mysterious, her friends would call it terrifying, but one thing was clear: someone or something had taken her, and the world would never see her again. The call came in just before dawn. Mia had not slept. She sat on her bed with her phone in her hands, staring at Emma's last message, a simple, "Something's wrong, I'll call you back." She never did. When the police finally arrived at Emma Lawson's apartment, the rain had stopped and the city was waking up. Sirens echoed down the street as uniformed officers and one plainclothes detective stepped through the narrow lobby doors. Detective Marcus Hayes had seen disappearances before. Most of them followed patterns: broken doors, struggles, witnesses. This one didn't. The apartment was untouched. No overturned furniture, no forced entry, no blood, no broken glass. The only unusual detail was the lingering dampness near the doorway, the floor still faintly marked where water had once been. Hayes knelt and studied it. Someone had cleaned. He rose slowly and turned to Mia. Tell me again about the phone call." Mia swallowed. She said the voice told her to meet somewhere, that it sounded calm, like whoever it was wasn't worried about being heard. Hayes nodded. That detail stayed with him. Calm voices belong to people in control. They pulled phone records first. Emma's phone had gone dead at 11:42 p.m. No outgoing calls after Mia. The incoming call came from a prepaid burner registered nowhere. Hayes studied the neighborhood security footage. The cameras glitched between 11:39 and 11:51 p.m. 11 minutes of darkness, then nothing. When the feed returned, Emma was gone. Neighbors offered nothing useful, no screams, no arguments, no unfamiliar cars. One man across the hall thought he heard footsteps, but only for a moment. Another neighbor swore she saw someone in a hood outside earlier in the evening, but she wasn't sure. The case should have gone quiet. Instead, it began to feel wrong. Hayes visited Emma's workplace that afternoon. Her coworkers described her as focused, intelligent, increasingly distracted the last few weeks. She checked the windows often. She left work through the back entrance. She stopped taking her usual lunch breaks. She looked like someone waiting for something bad to happen, one coworker said. Back at the station, Hayes spread the photos across his desk. Emma's apartment, the hallway, the time-stamped footage, the wet floor. Then the tip arrived. No return number, no voice, just a text to the public line. Check the place she feared the most. Hayes didn't believe in coincidences. He pulled Emma's digital history. Her laptop showed searches from weeks earlier. Abandoned buildings near me. How long does a burner phone last? How to know if someone is following you. Payphones still in service. The last one made him pause. Most of the city's payphones had been removed years ago, except one sitting near a condemned industrial strip on the east side. Hayes drove there alone. The structure was rusted and scarred with graffiti. The receiver hung crooked. The ground beneath it was dark with old rain. Crime Lab dusted what little remained. They found one partial fingerprint, not Emma's. The print matched Caleb Mercer, a low-level criminal with fraud and identity theft charges. Hayes brought him in. Caleb's hands shook when he sat down. "I don't know her," he insisted. "I swear." "Then why's your fingerprint on the phone used before she vanished?" Caleb stared at the table. "Because someone paid me to make a call. I didn't know what it was for." Hayes leaned forward. "Who paid you?" Caleb swallowed. "Didn't give a name, mask on, voice changer, met me near the rail yard, told me what to say, gave me cash." "What did they look like?" "Tall. That's all I got. Never saw their face." Hayes studied him. "What did they say about Emma?" Caleb hesitated. "They said she had been watching the wrong things, and that she was afraid." That detail made Hayes's skin crawl. They released Caleb. He was a pawn, nothing more. Detective Marcus Hayes stopped sleeping. The case followed him home, into the silence of his apartment, into the flicker of the television he never actually watched, into the sound of rain against his windows that now reminded him too much of Emma Lawson's last night. The pieces were there. They just refused to fit. Caleb Mercer's statement bothered him. Someone had orchestrated Emma's disappearance with patience, precision, and money. But there was no ransom demand, no political motive, no personal enemy that made sense. Whoever had taken her did not want recognition. They wanted her erased. Hayes turned his attention to the one thing the abductor had overlooked: Emma's routine. For 3 weeks he reconstructed it minute by minute. Every coffee shop, every street corner, every grocery run, every bus stop. The pattern emerged slowly. Emma was being followed. Not closely, not obviously, always from across the street, always in reflections, always at the edge of camera frames. A tall figure appeared again and again in store footage, never long enough to identify, never close enough to see a face. Sometimes wearing a dark hoodie, sometimes a jacket, always watching. Hayes pinned the still frames across his board. The figure became a presence in the room. Then Mia came back. She was pale, trembling, clutching her phone. "I got an email," she said. It came from Emma's old account. Subject: "Please don't tell anyone." The message was short, broken. "I'm not where you think. They're not who you think. Don't follow him. I made a mistake." The timestamp was 2 hours old. Hayes's pulse spiked. The account had been inactive since the night Emma vanished. He checked the server logs. The message had been sent from a public network at a roadside motel on the outskirts of the city. By the time Hayes reached it, the clerk remembered a woman matching Emma's description. She looked scared, kept the hood up, paid cash, used the computer in the lobby. Did she leave alone? The clerk hesitated. A man waited outside. Tall, dark jacket, face turned away. Hayes canvassed the area, found nothing. The next email came that night. "They know you're looking. He's closer than you think. If you hear the phone ring, don't answer." Hayes felt something shift inside his chest. This wasn't a simple abduction. This was a hunt. For days afterward, nothing. Then another message. "Warehouse 14, not safe, not the one on the map." Hayes knew the place, a row of condemned warehouses near the river, officially closed, unofficially ignored. He went alone. Inside Warehouse 14, he found signs of recent occupation. A blanket, a bottle of water, a charger. No Emma. But on the wall, scratched faintly into the rusted steel, "I tried to run." Hayes radioed the unit. When he turned back, the warehouse door creaked. A tall figure stood at the entrance, silhouetted by moonlight. They did not run. They did not speak. They simply stood there, watching him. Then the figure stepped back into the darkness and vanished. No footsteps, no sound. That night, the emails stopped. 2 weeks passed, then one final message appeared on Emma's social media page. "I see you still looking." Hayes closed his laptop slowly. Whoever had taken Emma was no longer hiding. They were watching him now, and they wanted him to know it. Detective Marcus Hayes knew the rules had changed the moment Emma's message appeared online. I see you still looking. It wasn't written for Emma's friends. It wasn't written for the public. It was written for him. The next morning, Hayes was pulled off the case. His captain said it was protocol, that he was too involved. Hayes didn't argue. He packed his files and took the copies home. When he closed his apartment door behind him, he understood what the abductor had meant. He was closer than he thought. Hayes spent the following nights reconstructing every detail again, from the phone call to the warehouse. He noticed something he had missed before. The stalker never appeared in footage before Emma searched for abandoned buildings. The fear came first. The hunt followed. Emma had seen something she was never meant to see. He returned to Warehouse 14 after dark. This time he wasn't alone. Mia insisted on coming. The warehouse felt different now, quieter, heavier. Dust hung in the air like fog. Near the back wall, Hayes found fresh markings on the steel. You were supposed to stop. Hayes felt his stomach drop. They followed the river road, the one Emma used to take home from work. Half a mile downstream, they discovered an unmarked gravel turnout, fresh tire tracks, a piece of black fabric caught on a branch. Mia whispered, "This is where they took her." They searched until sunrise. They never found Emma. Weeks passed. The city slowly forgot her name. Hayes did not. He resigned from the force, officially for health reasons, unofficially because he could not stop looking. One night, months later, his phone rang. Unknown number. Hayes stared at the screen. The voice that came through was calm, distorted, familiar. You should have stopped. Hayes tried to trace the call. It vanished. The next morning, a final post appeared on Emma's account. Some doors should never be opened. The account was deleted minutes later. Emma Lawson was never found. The case was closed. But on rainy nights, Detective Marcus Hayes still hears a phone ring in the dark and wonders if somewhere, somehow, Emma is still trying to be heard.